بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين وصلى الله وسلم وبارك على عبده ورسوله الأمين نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. أما بعد، السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. Aisha, may Allah be pleased with her, said that the Prophet ﷺ said 5 kinds of animals are harmful and could be killed in the haram, in the sanctuary. These are the crow, the kite, the scorpion, the mouse, and the rabid dog. Muslim said, may Allah have mercy on his soul, in his Sahih, 5 fawasiq, that is the harmful animals to be killed in haram and outside the haram area. In this hadith, we learn that when the Prophet said alayhi salatu wasalam that the game must not be chased in the sanctuary, the animals, the birds that people hunt cannot be frightened, cannot be chased, and cannot be hunted in the haram area. The Prophet is giving us an exception, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, because people might think that these animals, these harmful creatures must not be killed, and this is not the case. The Prophet is telling us that these 5 creatures can be killed whether you find them in the sanctuary or outside of the haram area. Why? Because of their harm. So the crow is to be killed, and some scholars differed regarding the crow. Is it the crow that attacks the crops, or is it the crow that feeds on dead animals and does harmful things? It appears to be it is the same in both. So if found and it is harmful, it must be killed. The kite is also a different type of bird. It's a sort of a scavenger. And the scorpion we all know, and also the scorpion you can kill it in the sanctuary, but even if you're praying you must kill it. And the mouse, the Prophet ﷺ instructed us to kill the mice if we see them, and also to kill the rabid dog, the dog that attacks, the dog that is harmful has to be killed. And scholars said anything that is harmful can be killed. So if it's a wolf, if it's a tiger, if it's a lion, it takes the same ruling as the rabid. If it is, let's say, also a snake, can be or must be killed. If it is any other type of insect that attacks and that harms people, you can kill it without any problem. But what you're not allowed to kill is something that is not harmful. And scholars say that things that can be killed in the haram area usually are one of 4. 1, the normal livestock. So what is the ruling on slaughtering livestock in the sanctuary of haram? It is permissible. People have to eat. So you can slaughter a sheep, a cow, a chicken, etc. All of this is permissible for you to slaughter, because this is not considered to be game. It's not considered to be something to be hunted. The second type that can be killed in haram, things that are not considered to be game, but at the same time they're not harmful. For example, a cat. This is not something that you hunt, but at the same time it is not harmful. So if you kill it, it is not recommended in Islam, and you will be sinful for killing it without any legitimate reason. But hypothetically speaking, if a person runs over a cat, is he sinful by mistake? No. Is he instructed to pay an expiation? The answer is no. The third type of things to be killed in haram are things that are harmful, like the 5 mentioned earlier. And scholars say that you must kill it and there is no sin in killing it, and there is no expiation as well for killing it. The fourth thing that you may kill in haram is the hunted animals, the game. So if you hunt a pigeon, there is an expiation. You have to slaughter, for example, a sheep. If you kill something that is bigger, for example, if you kill an ostrich, and at the time of the Prophet ﷺ, the Arabian Peninsula was inhabited by ostriches. So if you kill an ostrich, then you have to pay the compensation for that, the expiation for that, which is to sacrifice a camel, and so on. Now we move on to hadith of Anas ibn Malik, may Allah be pleased with him, and this is regarding entering Mecca. And this hadith was narrated by Anas, and he said that the Prophet ﷺ entered Mecca in the year of the conquest wearing a helmet on his head, and when the Prophet took it off, a person came and said, Ibn Khatal is holding the covering of the Kaaba, meaning that he's taking refuge in the Kaaba. The Prophet said ﷺ, kill him. Now in this hadith there are a number of lessons to be learned. Among them is the ruling in entering Mecca without having the state of ihram. The most authentic opinion is that it is a must for a person to enter Mecca. If he did not perform Umrah in his life, then it is a must for him to make Umrah, because Umrah is mandatory, as we know. If someone decides to come for business and he says, I'll make Umrah next year or the year after, and he never made Umrah in his life, this is not permissible. He has to fulfill his obligation. As long as he's coming to Mecca, he must make Umrah first. But if a person has already made Umrah once in his lifetime, and then he wanted to go to Mecca either for business or for visit or just to pray in the haram, is it permissible for him not to offer ihram and make Umrah? And the answer is yes. The evidence is this hadith of Anas, that the Prophet entered Mecca ﷺ wearing the helmet, meaning that he was not in the state of ihram, which means that if you have a reason to enter Mecca and you don't want to make ihram, you don't want to offer Umrah, this is permissible. And when he entered Mecca, they told him about Ibn Khatal. And Ibn Khatal was a Muslim, and then he committed the act of apostasy, and he had slave girls of his chanting poetry, criticizing and ridiculing of Islam. So not only he committed the act of apostasy, but he was an enemy of Islam. From this hadith, the Prophet ﷺ entered Mecca with a helmet. Why? Because this is what a warrior wears to protect his head from any blows that he may receive. And the Prophet, when he used to fight ﷺ, he used to wear his armor. And from this we learn and know that it is not against tawakkul, it is not against your reliance on Allah Azza wa Jal to take the means. We have deviant sects saying that you have to have full tawakkul on Allah Azza wa Jal and not work and not do anything and stay in the masjid, and Allah will give you provisions. And this is wrong. This is insane. It is like saying sit in the home and pray that Allah will prepare food for you. We have a short break. Stay tuned, and inshallah we'll be right back. Assalamu alaikum and welcome back. So believing or thinking that to have full reliance on Allah Azza wa Jal and dependence, that you should not take the means, this is against tawakkul. So if someone goes to Hajj, for example, and he does not take money, he does not take food, what are you doing? He said, I'm going tawakkul on Allah Azza wa Jal. This is insane. If someone sits in the home and says, oh Allah, grant me a child. Oh Allah, grant me a good, righteous son. And people tell him, get married. He said, no, I have tawakkul on Allah. You will not be reigned by children. It's not training children anymore. No, you have to work for it. Likewise, you're hungry, you have to cook food. So your dependence on Allah Azza wa Jal is matched or must be followed by taking the means. And the Prophet was the greatest of those who had tawakkul on Allah. Yet, when he fought, he had a helmet that protected his head. He had the armors. He had all the means to protect him. When he left and migrated from Mecca to Medina with Abu Bakr, he didn't say, Allah will guide me. He hired a professional person, a professional guide to take him to Medina, who knows the routes and who knows how to take them there safely. So we have to also understand that Islam does not promote people not to be active, not to work, not to take the means. Yet the opposite also is completely unacceptable, and that is when you depend on the means entirely. So if you depend on the medication to cure you and not on Allah Azza wa Jal who cures you, if you depend on your salary to buy food and to pay for the rent and to take your children to schools, yet you neglect that Allah is the provider, Allah is the supporter and the supplier of provision, this is shirk. Why? Because you're depending on the means rather than depending on Allah. They have to go side by side, with the dependence on Allah having an edge, and the means follow because Allah is the one who told us to take the means. Where did the Prophet ﷺ enter and how did he exit to Mecca? Hadith of Ibn Umar, may Allah be pleased with him, and his father said that the Prophet of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam entered Mecca from Kada or Kuday, and Kada is a place known in Mecca which is the highest Thaniya, which is Al-Batha, and used to leave Mecca from the lower Thaniya. So these are places, locations of Mecca. Explaining them and describing them would not do anything to you. However, you know that the Prophet entered from one place and exited from another place. Why is that? Scholars say that this is similar to what was happening in Eid. You recall that in Eid, the Prophet ﷺ used to go to the Musalla from one way and returns home from a different route. So likewise, this is to have as many areas witnessing and testifying your form of worship on the Day of Judgment, and this is convenient for the Prophet ﷺ as he came from one direction, which is from Medina, and then leaving from the other direction, and it depends from person to person how they manage to enter and what is more convenient. The following hadith is narrated by Abdullah ibn Umar, may Allah be pleased with him. He says that the Prophet ﷺ entered the Kaaba along with Usama ibn Zayd, Uthman ibn Talha, and Bilal, may Allah be pleased with them all, and closed the door. Entered what? Entered the Kaaba. After closing the door, when they opened it, I was the first man to enter. Meaning Abdullah ibn Umar did not go. So he was the first to enter. He asked Bilal, did the Prophet ﷺ pray? Bilal replied, yes, between the two Yemeni pillars. If you go to the Kaaba, you will find that it has only pillars inside. There's nothing in it, as some people think that there is a grave or there's a tomb or there is some sort of structure. No, it is not. And when the Prophet ﷺ entered Al-Kaaba, he went in there with Usama ibn Zayd and Bilal. And when was that? That was on the 10th year of Al-Hijrah, as some scholars say, because Hajj was made mandatory on the 9th year of Al-Hijrah. And the Prophet ﷺ conquered Mecca on the 8th year of Al-Hijrah. So if the Prophet entered it alayhi salatu wasalam in the 8th year of Hijrah, it's a possibility, but there were a lot of statues, a lot of idols, and that is why the Prophet ﷺ did not perform Hajj on the 9th year. He instructed Abu Bakr and Ali to take some people and announce in Mecca that after this year no mushrik will be allowed in, and no person performing Umrah or Hajj is allowed to go in nude, because only the people of Mecca were allowed to make tawaf wearing clothes, wearing their ihram. Others who came from outside, they had to perform tawaf in the nude unless they knew someone in Mecca who would lend them clothes. And this was completely prohibited in Islam, as we know, protects the chastity of people and covers their awrah. So the Prophet ﷺ entered the Kaaba with Uthman ibn Talha. Who is Uthman ibn Talha? Uthman ibn Talha ibn Shaybah, al-Shaybi. And there, up till today, are the holders of the keys of the Kaaba. So his descendants until today remain, and they are the custodians and the holders of the keys of the Kaaba. The Prophet entered there with Usama ibn Zayd ibn Haritha, may Allah be pleased with him and with his father, and with Uthman ibn Talha and with Bilal. And they closed the door. Now we know that Abdullah ibn Umar is so close to the Prophet, yet it is not a place for people to come in and sit. So he had to have his seclusion there and not to be bothered by other people or other worshippers who wanted to know what is he doing. So once they closed the door and then came out, Abdullah ibn Umar was the first to ask Bilal, and he asked him, did he pray? Because the first thing that someone may think, if we're instructed to face the Qibla, if you're inside, what to do? Which direction should I pray? I'm inside of it. So he asked him, and he said yes. And he pointed to him the place where he prayed. And this is why scholars differed, whether it is permissible to pray in the Kaaba or not. And the answer is definitely yes. And they differed whether it's only voluntary prayer that is permissible, or any prayer, even the mandatory. And the most authentic opinion is even mandatory prayers. And the scholars also differed regarding praying on top of the Kaaba. Is it permissible or not? And they reported a hadith, but this hadith is weak, where they say that Ibn Umar, may Allah be pleased with him, the Prophet forbade praying in a junkyard, in a slaughterhouse, in a graveyard, in the middle of the road, in a Turkish bath, it's like a sauna, and in the places of camels, in the barns of camels, and on top of the Kaaba. But this hadith is not authentic, and therefore scholars said that the most authentic opinion is that praying on top of the Kaaba is permissible. Now this is a hypothetical situation, because who will be able to go on top of the Kaaba except a very few handful of people, usually people who are working in maintenance. You never see people go on top of the Kaaba. Inside the Kaaba, yes, it is possible, if you know someone, to go once they are cleaning the Kaaba, washing the Kaaba, and you know that we wash the Kaaba twice or 3 times a year. So at that time, people may enter the Kaaba, then you can be among those who wash it and enter it. But is it something of importance that you should look up to? No. Is it sunnah to pray in the Kaaba? No, because the companions did not do it. May Allah be pleased with them all. But the Prophet did it, alayhi salatu wasalam. Hence, if you follow that sunnah without any obligations, without needing to pull any strings, then inshallah this is permissible, but there isn't any specific reward for that. Now, from this hadith, we learn how careful were the companions of the Prophet ﷺ to learn his sunnah. Ibn Umar was anticipating the door to be opened to be the first one to ask. Why? Because we know that Ibn Umar, may Allah be pleased with him, was very careful, was very keen on learning the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ as much as possible. And also we know that the Prophet ﷺ favored some companions over the others. For example, Zayd ibn Haritha was the adopted son of the Prophet ﷺ until adoption was forbidden in Islam. Yet he remained one of his closest companions to the Prophet because he treated him as a son. And when Zayd ibn Haritha had a son, which is Usama, the Prophet loved Usama greatly. And Usama used to be known as the love of the Prophet ﷺ and the son of his love, because he was like his grandson. Zayd was his adopted son, and then Usama, the son of Zayd, he also loved him a lot, ﷺ. Yet his love to him was not a reason to go against the Sharia. And this is something that the Prophet ﷺ would never ever play with. That is why when Usama ibn Zayd went to the Prophet, when a woman from Bani Makhzum was arrested for stealing, and the Prophet sentenced that she must be punished for that, Usama ibn Zayd was approached by her family telling him, please go and talk to the Prophet ﷺ. So when Usama went to the Prophet ﷺ trying to make the sentence a little bit lesser, not to amputate the whole hand, the Prophet was furious and angry. And he said, Usama, are you talking to me in one of the prescribed punishment of Allah Azza wa Jal? By Allah, if Fatima, the daughter of Muhammad, stole something, I would have cut her hand off. And this shows us that when it comes to Islam, when it comes to the laws, nobody is above the law. Not even the daughter of the Prophet alayhi as-salatu was-salam. This is all the time we have. Until we meet next time, fi amanillah. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.